Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Rene and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
Oh, that bell's loud today.
It was loud. I don't think I'll be able to hear you the rest of the podcast.
That's good. All right. Hi, Renee. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Matt. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
It's great to see you.
We're on a streak.
I am on a streak.
We're on a streak.
And I don't mean taking off my clothes.
Let's go streaking.
The young people won't get that joke. They won't know what the 70s streaking movement was.
I was referencing the movie Old School.
Old School.
You watch that?
Oh,
With
yeah.
Will Ferrell?
Will Ferrell. I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan.
It's a good one, though.
Yeah, we'll agree to disagree.
You know what? It's a good movie. He's not the main character, which makes it a little
I know,
more
but he runs
palatable.
around naked all the time. Yeah, I know. I remember that.
He does, yeah.
But no, you know, it was mildly entertaining.
Yeah.
As Will Ferrell movies go. Don't see the Journey to the Center of the Earth one. That is terrible.
He's in there?
Yeah.
Never saw that.
Is that's the one, or is the one with the Land of Time?
Land of the Lost.
Land of Lost. Land of Lost. That's it. Land of
that
Lost.
TV
That's
show
the one.
from the 70s.
Right.
that they
The Land
remade
of That's
into
the
a
one I'm
movie.
talking about. Sorry. Yeah.
That was not good.
That was not.
I did
good.
see that, though.
That was not good.
No. But this is not a Will Ferrell podcast.
No,
This
it's not a
martial arts MMA podcast. A lot of congratulations to the Radical MMA family. We had a lot of great wins this weekend. Our favorite G pulled it out with the submission in the second round, right?
Yeah, third round.
Third round.
Yeah, it was. And then we also co-product of Professor Cat and myself, Jorg Anderson. He also had a win, and it was a great time. And then one of my junior team members, Ben, did a Muay Thai exhibition match and did very, very well. So, you know, really, really happy. It was a really good weekend for us. And you know, people don't know. We were just joking around with things behind the scenes and talking about behind the scenes in the podcast studio and things like that. But people don't know what goes on behind the scenes in your fight camp. And you know, this was a very, very, very difficult fight camp, and people just see the win, but they don't see the incredible amount of hard work. And G was dealing with some injuries, some actually serious injuries where he's gonna have to take a little time off. He has a injury. I won't say what it is because you know people do listen to this, but he has an injury that has to take some time off and rehab. He also did not have a lot of time to train because he was really busy at work, and he had a international travel that he had to do to visit some family members in China. So it was every single aspect of this camp was incredibly challenging. And we also didn't have as many partners available to us. It was just really tough camp. And G came in, and he came in very heavy, struggled with the weight cut.
What weight class is he?
He fights in 185 this time.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
but he walked around way heavy. We started the camp at, what do you think we started at?
Way heavy. So when I think way heavy, I'm like 240. But
yeah, not so far off.
Really?
It was almost 230.
Holy moly. That's a big weight cut. How long ago would it say?
It was like, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. Something
8
like that.
weeks?
Yeah, that's it.
I need to talk to you about losing weight.
No kidding.
Christ.
Because he went to China and had a family obligation where it was eat. And, when grandma says eat this, you don't get to say no. And and visiting family, it's an issue like that. And he came in when 227. To 227, and a week before the fight, he was really not on the targets we need to be in. And he was telling me, he's looking at one of his training partners and he says, "What are you weighing at?" He tells him what he weighs at, and he goes, "Oh boy." And it was so hard and so rough. And
but he made it.
He made it. We made weight. And but when you drop weight that hard, there's a price to pay. And what happened was not just the adrenaline, but everything, but the cardio during the fight was not what it should have been because of the weight cut. You just get drained like that. Mm-hmm. So the first round, G took a little bit. He's always a little bit of a slow starter, but he took even more time to get going. And then the adrenaline and the cardio kicked in. And thank God we just put so many hours in of just general training that he went on autopilot. And, we had some challenging moments, but I don't know if you saw the fight, but G was just racking him with the clinch with strikes. I mean, it was one technique we learned with the break-off punch, which Mike Perry does, and he fought him this weekend. But a break-off overhand and a break-off elbow, and we can't throw elbows in amateur. But break-off overhand, pop, 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 pop. We worked that so many times, and he hit that guy. Props to Benavidez, is G's opponent. I have never seen a guy with such fighting spirit, will to just push through. And in the second round, he took so much damage and was just being hit so much, and he just kept coming forward like a tank, like a German, what are those, the tanks that
the Sherman tanks?
Yeah, the Sherman was our side, but the German was the more heavier weighted, the Panzer. The Panzer. He came like a Panzer tank, heavy, plodding, just boom, just eating shots and pushing forward. And G was just pop, pop, pop. And then finally, and G was getting really tired punching him. He told me, he's like, why won't you quit, motherfucker? and he won't quit. That guy had no quit in him. And I have a lot of respect for his opponent. He took G into very deep waters, and G kind of punched himself out. But then we went into, the guy got a takedown in the third round, and G said, you think this is where you are, but this is my best place. And that's the game. Up to this point, we have not exposed our jiu-jitsu mastery. Mm-hmm. And nobody sleeps on us. This is, Radical MMA, people think we're a striking school. And instantly went to the ground. He swept him, mounted him, took his back, choked him out. Bam! And the minute he got there, I turned to Professor Cannon, I'm like, she's going to win now. And he's like, really? He's like, yeah, the fight's going to be over in about 2 seconds. He's like, really? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, he's going to win now. He's like, boom, and it was over. And I was very proud of him for pushing through. But the first thing I did, and people know me, that I'm no bullcrap kind of guy. We were talking about the last podcast. G made a technical mistake on the rear naked choke. The first thing I walk in, I'm like, what are you doing with that bullshit choke?
How can you get better?
And then he's like, I know, it sucked. I'm like, gee, why'd you do that choke? So people are laughing. They know, I'm not exactly like, hey, great job, buddy. I'm like, why did you do that bullshit choke? That's the first thing I said to him.
Oh my gosh. What did he have to eat for his first meal after the
I don't want to say it was terrible. It was terrible. It was the worst choice ever. I'm so
Pizza
embarrassed
Hut
about
pizza?
it. Yeah, basically. And we're going to change that. And, it's whatever. It was.
Well, I'm sure the weight cut wasn't pleasurable for him either,
and
so he knows better.
The funny thing is when you cut weight and you have that first meal, you crave greasy, oily food. It's kind of like, when you're drunk. Not that I've been drunk. Last time I had alcohol was 1998. 1988. I'm sorry. 1992. That was the last time I had alcohol. The last time I was inebriated was 1988. But when you kind of have that drunk feeling and you just crave like munchies or grease, that's kind of like what happens when you weight cut. Your body craves fat and grease. So there's a temptation to just go blah and just eat crazy, but you have to resist it. And
he didn't.
Not really. Not really.
Well, how old is he? He's young, right?
Yeah, 32.
Oh,
not young. Yeah.
All right, I was gonna say he's a kid, but
yeah, a little bit he is though. Yeah, he's mature in some ways.
He ordered the left side of the menu at McDonald's.
Exactly. Well, that was our celebration meal. After we go driving home, we went to McDonald's. He's like, "Can I get a McDonald's? I want a McDonald's." I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna get
McDouble with mac sauce,
chicken McNuggets." That's what he got.
Yeah, there's not real chicken in there, man.
I know, but that's what he wanted.
Whatever.
With the sweet and sour sauce. That's what he wanted.
All right.
And extra sweet. We got extra sweet and sour.
Well, I'm not gonna say anything bad about him because he'll kick my ass.
No, we'll just laugh.
I can't say anything bad.
And York Anderson had a very tough fight. We got two warriors from the same camp. The camp was called Ultimate MMA in I believe it's in Massachusetts. Incredibly tough guys, man. And the guy who fought York came for a battle, and he was a very experienced grappler and lifted York up in the air. I mean, the guy was floating in the stratosphere a few times, but York we practiced lots of balance, maintaining our balance, came back down, and each time the guy did that, he was losing his cardio. Not exactly our strategy, was exactly reminiscent of the David Branch fight, where David Branch was, trying to take down who was it the last we were just talking about, right? Yeah. And it looked like David Branch was really aggressing, but it's a strategy to let the grappler really work those takedowns and tire yourself out. And that was our strategy, is let him tire himself out in the first round and then we come to kill. And then the second and third round, it was absolute destruction. And props to the opponent, but it was we threw spinning back kicks and
Jared Cannonier.
Cannonier. Yeah. And wrestling. If you're not training wrestling every day, wrestling takes a tremendous toll of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fail on that takedown, and especially high amplitude throws, you fail on them, you get tired. That's why you remember Randy Couture, and we were talking about it's the 25th anniversary of the UFC, but Randy Couture and Fedor, both of them were really interesting because while they did some high amplitude takedowns too, a lot of times they would just do these like little simple knee taps where they just drive into you and tap your knee. Or Randy Couture was very good at bouncing people off the cage, using the momentum, the energy of the cage bounce, where he would take you down with minimal cardio effort. And that's kind of like what we want to do, make minimal effort. But anyway, it was good. It was a really good weekend for our team. I'm super happy. Very proud of my guys. Win, lose, or draw. Very, very proud of them. And, just move onward and keep going. So it was a great weekend for us. It was tiring. It was tiring though, but it was great.
Where was it?
Massachusetts, right on the border of Massachusetts and Connecticut, and near Springfield, Massachusetts.
Very cool. So G's taking a little bit of a break, but he's been on. I mean, since we started this podcast, I think I've heard him winning at least 3 times in the last four times in the last year.
Yeah.
When's he getting the call?
Yeah, well, we got to go pro first, and then we'll see. But we got to also fix some things and some injuries, and don't rush. The amateurs are just where you get everything, all the kinks out, and better do it in the amateurs.
What's his amateur record?
His official amateur record is 4-0, but he does have a fight that he lost, which is not a registered fight, but he has a WKA tournament loss. But he lost to an amazing fighter named William Knight. So really, his record is 4-1, but official record is 4-0.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Can't wait to see the future for G and all the others Radical MMA.
Yeah, and G's very first fight was, kind of we could hit William Knight, who is he's in the same show as us. He's the premier 205-pound champion. So he's the real deal pro champion.
Is G thinking about going up to 205?
We did last fight. We went up 205, but no, G's a 185. He has to fight 185, and obviously, we want to come into camps where we're weighing a reasonable now and being in shape. But really, his body type is everything. He's a 185er. That's where he should be. And we just, last time we had an issue where, there was 185 fight fell through. So we took a fight at 205, but really he's 185er. So that's that. So G has the 205-pound title and the 185-pound title. So he's the double champ, but we gave that 205 up because we're not going to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. There were some fights this weekend.
Oh my God, yeah. And it's amazing because UFC 25th anniversary in November 13th, 1993 was the very first UFC 25 years ago to this day.
Wow.
So it's a huge day, Hoist Gracie.
I couldn't watch it.
But nobody could. It was like on, nobody knew about it.
They were passing tapes.
Right. I didn't watch it live either. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't, I don't think it was on even a pay-per-view. I don't think the first one was.
UFC, was it UFC 1 or was it?
Yeah, UFC 1. Yeah. Was it on pay-per-view? It might have been on pay-per-view. Yeah. But it was, we all found it usually through the videotapes afterwards.
I remember seeing the videotapes in the Blockbuster.
But the Blockbuster, that's how we all watched it, a Blockbuster. Or before it was on Blockbuster, it was just, trading tapes between friends. It's come such a long way.
The logo, my God.
Oh my
God. The guy
God.
on top of the planet.
Do you know John Milius? He used to directed Conan the Barbarian. He directed a lot of war movies. He's a famous war movie director. He was actually the kind of like brainchild behind the first UFC production and making it very dramatic, and that's kind of where the Octagon came from. There's a few people credited with the Octagon, they're saying, but the whole idea was to make it dramatic and and sort of like a martial arts contest, like a movie, and it's turned into something like that.
Now the UFC, they started with like the tournaments where it would be some elimination.
Yes, that's right.
Kind of like how Bellator is doing it now.
Right, but it would be on the same day. And it was rough. You'd have 3-4 fights in one day. I mean, that's crazy. And it was all bare knuckle. The first fight did not allow groin punching, but I believe the second one did, or the third one did. Right. So there was actually some rules in the first one. You couldn't punch in the groin, but that rule was
2 rules
taken away and then put back in.
there's 2 rules: no biting, no eye gouging, and they were only enforced by a $1,500 fine. So if you did it, you just got $1,500.
Yeah, but there was also in the first one. I don't think there was groin strikes, right? Was that wrong?
Just says 2 rules.
Oh, 2 rules, right? Okay, well, obviously I was mistaken, but I know the groin strike rule was like in and out in the beginning, where you couldn't.
The winner got $50,000.
Yeah,
that's it.
Hoist Gracie,
and he wasn't one of the other Rorian Gracie.
Rorian Gracie was the promoter.
Sorry.
Hoist Gracie was the fighter.
Yeah. A lot of familiar names on this roster. A lot that I've never heard of though.
Yeah, Ken Shamrock. So many the people got started on that show. And it was just funny because a lot of people tried out. You know who tried out for the first UFC, but wasn't going to fight because of the conflict of interest? And he was a student of the Gracies, was Big John McCarthy, the ref, the famous ref. So he was going to fight, but they're saying, look, if you enter the tournament, you're going to have to fight against us. You're one of our students. So, how about you become a referee instead? Because he was also a police officer at that time. So that's how he got started he was going to fight first. But then the Rorian Gracie said, no, because then you're kind of like our enemy instead of our student. And because, Hoist is in the tournament. So why don't you just be the ref instead? And that's how Big John got his start.
Huh.
Yeah. And then a few other people like that too, that they were already training Gracie Jiu-Jitsu at that time. Very, very interesting, and probably one of the most seminal moments in the development of martial arts in the last, 100, 200 years. But anyway, just talking about the fights. Let's go back to the fights before we go do a retrospective of the UFC.
Yeah, what do we have?
So we had Yair Rodriguez versus Korean Zombie.
Yeah.
Did you see that fight?
I did not see that fight.
It
went along.
Oh, yeah. And we also had Donald Cerrone versus...
I saw the highlights. Mike Perry.
Yeah, Mike Perry. And that was... and then we had Raquel Pennington fighting Rene and Matt, the former champion who wouldn't fight to defend her title.
Mm-hmm.
And those are 3 big name fights, and they definitely what I like about the UFC, and this is, you can say a lot of negative things about the UFC, but they put the top guys against the top guys. And so you're like, Rene and Matt, you want back? Well, you got to fight. You got to fight someone good. And they put it against Pennington, who just came off of a title shot. And obviously she lost. It was a rough fight. It was a rough fight. And Rene and Matt won. But, maybe, sometimes you take big losses and they get in your head. And I think maybe Pennington has to do some mental work to come back a little stronger.
Yeah.
And also I was heard that she is in school and like pursuing a medical degree. Man, full-time fighting while you're doing school. Hey, that's pretty difficult. But I hats off to her. She's amazing. But Donald Cerrone, and I don't know if you know the beef between Donald Cerrone and Mike Perry, is that they were both training at Jackson Wink. And Jackson Wink chose Mike Perry to coach because it's Winklejohn. Jackson has kind of stepped out. Supposedly he's taking a little break from coaching, so it's really Winklejohn. And Winklejohn and Cerrone have never seen eye to eye. They don't have like such a great relationship. And so, Cerrone's been long time student of that camp. And then they chose Mike Perry, a newcomer. They said, we're going to coach you and we're not going to coach Cerrone. And Cerrone went on the Joe Rogan podcast and, basically trash talked Winklejohn, said the gym is terrible. And Winklejohn's a just terrible trainer, disgusting, and he felt betrayed. And he, basically trained on his own ranch. And there's a tremendous amount of bad blood. And I don't like to get into the drama, but it's hard to see, 2 people from the same camp. That's a real issue. And that happened in that same camp between John Jones and Rashad Evans. That camp, when you're successful, what do? Do you fight your buddy? And how do you do that? You see it in Team Alpha Male, you see it all the time in schisms between inside camps. And I guess it's a part of martial arts. Look, if you could look back old history, I think the reason why there's so many different martial arts styles, like there's this style of Kung Fu and that style of Kung Fu, is because there's a schism. And, one student has to leave the master and he's not happy and he has to do his own thing. And, I guess it's kind of like part of martial arts that when you have enough, lions in the pack, eventually in the pride, some lions have to go off and form their own pride. And
Nothing
this is
wrong with that. I mean, they should.
nothing
they
wrong
should
with that,
look
right?
to grow.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
should just have them fight, and whoever wins gets to stay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but but Cerrone, basically, it really showed that Mike Perry, while was on a tear, I mean, he's not lost in a long time. As a fighter, his fight IQ is somewhat lacking, and he put himself in Cerrone's guard and just got.
So it was a
walloped.
big fight for them.
Yeah.
And Cerrone is now
Very old school armbar, which kind of like apropos for the 25th anniversary because it's a very old school armbar. Could have been the same armbar. Could have been done 25 years ago.
He's got the most wins in UFC history now.
Yeah, he's got the most finishes and the most wins.
Wow.
So not just the most wins, but also the most finishes.
21.
Yeah, and 15, I believe. Right? Is it 15? Yeah. I don't know the
Most
exact number.
submissions? Is it?
Most finishes.
Most finishes.
Yeah, which combines submissions and knockouts. But I forgot what those.
He's got 9 knockouts and 17 submissions.
Oh wow! Holy crap! That's a lot. That is amazing. Yeah, 21 wins for yeah. That's right. 15 finishes. Oh, it says 15 finishes. 15 submissions.
Well,
yeah.
that's his whole. It might not be his UFC record.
UFC
that's his
record,
full
right.
martial arts record.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Anyway,
He's been around for a while.
I remember Cerrone fighting Uriah. Was it Uriah Faber or fighting in the WEC? I don't know if he fought Uriah Faber, but no, I don't think he did. But he was fighting in the WEC way back when.
See when his first fight was.
Yeah.
It was 2006 was his first fight. That was not in UFC though.
Wait, who did he fight in the WEC?
Kenneth Alexander was his first WEC fight. Danny Castillo, Rog McCullough,
Danny Castillo. Yeah. I remember that. That's a team out.
Benson Henderson.
He fought. That's right. He fought
He
Benson
lost
Henderson.
against him twice.
That's right. He fought Benson Henderson. That's who I remember watching.
His first UFC
And
was in 2011.
Yeah. Oh my God. All those guys were from the WEC. And one of the best things, it's really sad because one of the best things the UFC did was buy the WEC and get lightweights. And they're going to get rid of the 125 division, it seems.
Really?
Yeah, they're going to can it. Can you believe that? It's terrible. Because it's such a technical division. That's one of the reasons I believe Cejudo's fighting TJ Dillashaw is because the scuttlebutt is that the 125 division is going to be removed.
What would be the justification for that? Not as exciting?
Not
enough?
as exciting. Yeah, I don't know. I know. And
just put them on the prelims. Nobody watches those except for the diehards.
right, but it's like if you're a champion, you got to pay champions
That's
champion
true.
way.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
also it's like, I mean, it's tough because as fans, I think fans love to watch. First thing, they love to watch bigger fighters. They do. They just Mike Tyson was always more popular than Shane Mosley or something, or whatever, someone smaller, right? Or Sugar Ray Leonard or something, who was popular, but it's not the same level. Like Mike Tyson's become iconic, right? Muhammad Ali. In MMA, it's Randy Couture or Brock Lesnar or whatever, or even John Jones is not a heavyweight, but he's up there. And people don't talk about Demetrius Johnson's reign of the 125 division.
Yeah.
And they don't talk about Pequeño in Japan. Pequeño's a small, obviously small fighter. Pequeño means small in Spanish, but he's a Brazilian fighter. But he ruled the lower weights of Shuto, which is a Japanese MMA, for like, I don't know, it was like 15 years. He was undefeated, and nobody talks about it. So there's a bias towards larger fighters because obviously we look at through our genetic coding. When someone looks at you, Matt, and look at me, they will be more intimidated by you and me than me. They would absolutely be, because you're just much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this genetic encoding to recognize threat of larger people. Now, when it comes to a real threat, I'm a bit more dangerous than you.
Yeah. If I fell on you, you'd be in trouble.
I
No,
think
not
I'd be
you
okay.
wouldn't be in trouble. No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's
People don't
part of
understand.
our genetic coding
Yeah.
to recognize threat. That's why bouncers generally can't fight.
They're just
just
huge.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just big. And I was a terrible bouncer. I was terrible because people just wanted to fight me all the time.
Yeah.
It was a really stressful time of my life, because there was fight time,
Yeah.
And so we recognize threat through size, but that's not always the case.
It's
And,
interesting.
yeah.
I think when I first started really watching UFC, I wanted to watch the heavyweight fights because of the same reasons that you're saying. But as the time has gone on, I've watched more heavyweight fights. I find them very boring.
Yeah, because
they're
they suck.
slow.
They suck.
And
No, not all.
light heavyweight is my favorite division.
You're right. Light heavyweight and middleweight are really
I think they
interesting.
combine the good parts of all of them. They got the athleticism for the quickness, and then they also have the bulk for the power.
Yeah. I think you're right. The guys at 205, the guys at 185, the guys at 170 are, especially I think 170 is really interesting because they look intimidating. Like George St. Pierre looks intimidating. He's a big dude, you know, and he moves like lightning. And the same thing with all the guys at 170. They just move really well, you know. Darren Till, who lost, but still, guy's an intimidating guy.
Do you remember Kung Lee?
Oh no, that's Darren Till's one. Yeah, of course.
I love that guy. I loved watching him fight.
Well, he's very big in the movie world right now.
Yeah, he was in like one of the Mortal Kombat movies or something.
Yeah, one of my friends actually trained under him. My friend Max trained under him, and he's San Da, which is Chinese kickboxing and throws. And he's a legitimate martial artist, and he has beautiful. He's kind of guy that brought the spinning back kick back into.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember who I watched him fight against, but he did the spinning back kick against
Shamrock.
Somebody. It might have been Shamrock.
Yeah,
they had a big
Shamrock.
rivalry, right?
Yeah.
It was Shamrock.
Broke his arm. Yeah.
That was an amazing fight.
Yeah, broke his arm with it. Yeah.
So that's an exciting fight. I remember when I used to watch fake wrestling as a child. My grandpa was really into it, so we'd watch it, and I was really into it too. I'm not going to pretend. And I remember watching like the lucha guys, the guys that would jump around and fly off stuff. That was very entertaining.
Very acrobatic guys. I mean, they're amazing performers.
And then you watch like Hulk Hogan versus some other big musclehead, and it's interesting because of the storyline, but it's not a fun fight to watch. I don't know. I'm not really interested in the heavyweight guys. Yeah. Give me Roy Nelson all day. I look up to that guy.
But Roy Nelson's funny too. You know what? I have to say, Ngannou, while he is very, very one-dimensional, has some beautiful handwork. He's just some beautiful form, beautiful handwork. And if he punches very well, like he punches like someone technically really nice, you know? And he has power too, you know? So, and Stipe too is good. Even Daniel Cormier's, he's obviously pretty freaking good. He wouldn't be the champion if he wasn't, you know? However, that last fight was kind of a joke. But, we genetically, it's in our coding to recognize threat certain ways. And we recognize threat by behavior or by size. It's pretty simple. That's how we gauge threat. And so there's a predisposition towards the heavier fighters until you become an educated fan. And then you start to appreciate what's going on. The other thing is, when you don't know what's going on in jiu-jitsu, or even if it's a very technical back and forth kind of chess game of striking, you're like, what's going on here? Because you need to understand what's happening. And sometimes it's difficult for a casual fan to understand the chess play of grappling. And you don't see as much of that in the heavyweight division. You don't see that chess play. It's kind of like, a little bit more, even when there's grappling, it's more understandable.
Yeah, I think that a lot of fans are missing a lot of the fun of UFC and MMA in general by not knowing more about the sport.
Yeah, but that's changing. That's changing.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of information.
Especially because like we were talking about before, because the video games. We talked about the last podcast. People's knowledge is incredible now. So I think that's changing, and it's a good thing. And I have people come into my academy, and obviously I am sampling towards people who are interested in fighting already. But I'm not. You can tell when somebody's trained martial arts all their life and they like MMA. Or someone just watched MMA and then came into our academy because they were a fan of MMA. And the latter group, you'd be surprised. They're like, oh, how long have you watched MMA? Oh, 6 months. And then they'll start talking about, his Superman punch and his slip uppercut. I'm like, whoa, that's some good knowledge there. Like you're like starting to see it. But again, like the fight between Yair Rodriguez and Korean Zombie. It was a very, very, very fan-friendly fight.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just rock'em sock'em robots. Was it a good fight? No. It was a stupid fight. But from my opinion, from a technical standpoint, Korean Zombie's a Korean Zombie. There's a reason I call him Korean Zombie. He's gotten better. He's gotten a little more tactical, but he basically does the Brazilian, blitz. You know, he just steps forward, 1-2, 1-2, and he's gotten a little bit better with sneaky, but he's just basically a linear fighter who comes at you with his fists. And but it was a brawl. I mean, these guys would not stop hitting each other. You know, they were really going at it. And then, did you see the finish?
No,
that fight?
I didn't see any of it.
Oh my God. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So you got to pull it up. We're gonna pull it up before we talk about it. But I want to talk about. We're gonna pull this up, right? Because you have to see this, and you're gonna be like, "Holy," you know, because it was just so creative and so cool and so just unbelievably amazing that here. So I want you to watch this. So we're playing the. For those of you who don't know, don't know that. Yeah,
He just fell asleep.
watch it again. Watch it again. The replay. It is amazing. So I posted on the Facebook page. So I want everybody to watch it. This was a very, very unique elbow. I've never seen a knockout with that elbow before in MMA's history ever. It is. Well, I've seen it in other sports like Muay Thai, but it's very uncommon. And you see, basically faked a shot to
What? He came up.
Yes, right. It's amazing, unreal, just so creative. And he's hitting him with very unorthodox elbows through much of the fight and timing those elbows. I think we've hit him twice. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And so the people watching the podcast, it's on our Facebook page. But just phenomenally creative fighter, Yair Rodriguez. But also there's a problem because that fight, Yair Rodriguez was losing the whole fight not the whole fight, but a good portion of the fight on the scorecard. So this is kind of interesting. So they were just killing each other. And it goes back to like, how do we determine who wins the fight? Because, okay, so let's go over the statistics. These are from CompuStrike or Fight Metric or something, right? So Jung, because he does those 1-2s, he had 111 significant head strikes. Rodriguez had 59. So that's a huge difference, right? 60 to 110, right? But Rodriguez had 24 really significant body strikes. Well, Jung only had 9. Then they had 36 leg kicks for Rodriguez. Well, Jung only had 6. And so that's like, when you think about it, Rodriguez was out kicking and out body shotting Jung and was really wrecking his knee. And so there's some serious damage to Korean Zombie also has bad knee. There's some serious damage to the legs. Obviously, we score punching to the head more. But, you know, like people were saying, and it's funny because the commentator, Paul Felder, was like, he's looking at like the fight like I was looking at it. And he's like, yeah, Rodriguez is doing well. He's winning. But actually, if you look at the stats, he wasn't winning. So it's like the way fighters look at fights, because there was like body shots, legs, all mixing up, elbows. There's an elbow in there. He was hitting a much more variety of strikes and controlling the fight. Not controlling the fight, but really being a little bit more tricky and throwing lots of different strikes. But there's a weight towards face punching, and the same thing with the Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Rose Namajunas fight, the second one. Yeah. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I think Joanna won because she scored leg kicks, while Rose scored punches. And we tend to score punches more. So it's an interesting thing. The other thing is, like, I look at it from combat reality. Like, of course, the punch is the KO. But when you kick a guy's leg, you drop him like a tree trunk. You can drop a guy's leg, and sometimes you can even really injure that leg. So from a fight reality, Jung's in the hospital now. He's in the hospital, and I think he's going to have reconstructive surgery again on his knee. So it's like, okay, we didn't see the KO. But I think he actually, we didn't see the leg kick damage, right? We don't see what's going on in his knee. We saw the KO. But I believe that his legs were so like messed up that he started coming even more dumb. And, like he's not the most angular fighter, but definitely not. But I think Rodriguez chopping at those legs and just chopping just was setting up more things that he wanted to do, and it just happened that he threw that elbow, knocked him out. That is it's the ties for the closest to the edge finish, closest to the bell finish. Yeah. Then it's ties with Demetrius Johnson's armbar of Wilson Hayes, was it? I forgot, but he ties with one that was very, very close, or was it? Yeah. Anyway, but it's one of the ties for the at the closest to the bell finish. Wow. Anyway, so it's interesting. Like, we have to think about how we categorize damage in the scoring system, and who knows, But I think the leg kicks played a part in that elbow KO. When you take someone's legs out, they can't move well. When they can't move well, you can do more to them. Now, and I'll tell you, in York's fight in this weekend, that was one of our strategies, to kick really low and kick really hard. When the wrestler's legs give out, he can't wrestle. So I think maybe leg kicks, we have to look at how they're judged and how they're scored, and maybe rethink that. I don't know, though. It's kind of a good question. Anyway, so that's my take on those fights. It's kind of interesting. Really, really cool fight. Makes me think, makes me think about the scoring, but in terms of angles and smarts, not so smart. No. Not so smart. And it's interesting because Yair Rodriguez only had a few weeks to prepare for this fight, because he got called in as a replacement. I forget who, but he had called in a replacement. I think it was Frank Edgar, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah. And so he has to, not a big training camp. And, it's Denver. Denver is,
Mile
High City. Yeah, exactly. So, you got to give Yair Rodriguez a lot of credit for that performance.
It kind of, the end of that fight kind of looked like how I fight. I'm just going
like Batman in the against Bane, where he's flicking his elbows around.
I just try to make as much movement as I can so you can't get close to me.
No, but this was interesting. It was interesting. One, it was really creative night of fights. Old school armbar. Definitely, I like to see a little bit more angles in the striking. Very entertaining fight, and a fight that, Korean Zombie is just Korean Zombie. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? He's a zombie.
Nothing.
You don't call him Korean Zombie for nothing. But it's the 25th anniversary. I don't know. You didn't watch it, but they in the fights, what they did was in the when they run down the fighter stats, they did the old logo from the old UFC with the old picture and the terrible color schemes. But it was kind of a hail mark. So I want to talk to you, Matt. What are your significant? Let's go back. What do you will go back and forth. I don't want to just do that. What are your significant moments of watching the UFC? Like, in the 25 years the UFC's been around, you tell me one, I'll tell you one, you tell me one, where you say this fight was the most significant I feel in the UFC, or for me, going back to whenever, and why. I'm really curious to see you from the fan experience.
Man, I've seen like the highlights of the old, like the 90s stuff like that.
Well, no, but I mean, for your own, like, what was the first fight that got you into the, it's like, I'm a fan now?
I think the first one that really like got me really, really watching it and like paying for it, because I never really paid for it.
Yeah.
What was the Jones versus Machida? When he choked him out against the fence.
Oh, God, that guillotine was so good.
That was so cool.
Do you want to know something cool about that guillotine? So after that fight, the guy says, because that guillotine is known as the McKenzie-tine. It's a guillotine variation. And they go to John Jones. He's like, oh, did you practice that McKenzie-tine, often? He's like, what are you talking about? I just made it up. He's like, I just made it up. I'm like,
just choked the guy against the fence.
You just made him up. Yeah. Like, John Jones is brilliant.
I remember I watched that in a bar in Rochester.
The probably place went crazy.
It was insane. Everybody was yelling. It was crazy.
So that was
kind of my big one. I mean, I've watched them previously and stuff like that, but that one was I pretty much watched them all.
That was a great fight too.
It was a really good one.
You know what? As a kind of contemporaneous to that fight, one of my biggest fights around that same era was Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that fight? The entire fight, Chael Sonnen is beating the snot out of Anderson Silva. So what you do is Anderson Silva, you take him down and ground and pound him for the entire round. Round one, takes him down, ground and pounds him. Round two, takes him down, ground and pounds him. Round three, takes him down, ground and pound him. He landed something like 273 headshots from ground and pound. To Anderson's significant strike in that fight was like, at that point before the win, was like one. Mm-hmm. like one jab. So it was like 272-1.
Yeah.
And third round, he takes him down. Matt wrecks him. Takes him down, wrecks him. Fourth round, same thing. Fifth round, fight is almost over. Anderson Silva pulls on the most awesome triangle ever and taps him out. I went wild.
Wow.
Don't sleep on jiu-jitsu, baby.
No.
But tactically, a failure of his punch defense and things like you shouldn't be on the back the whole time. But still, it was a pretty amazing fight for me. It was like I remember sitting with my wife. I don't think she was my wife at the time. I think we were still dating. Yeah, I think we were still dating. And I just stood up and went, arms in the air, yes, because I hate Chael Sonnen.
Yeah.
He's my pre Conor McGregor hater. The person I hated before Conor McGregor. That was a huge fight for me. And what else? Give me another one so you got Machida and Jones. What's another one like in this year that you did 25 years that you just absolutely remember?
Man. I remember like the motions and like the feeling, but I don't know if I can remember like the whole thing.
Right. Not the whole thing, but
I just keep thinking about John Jones.
Yeah, John Jones is fine. You're a big John Jones fan. Well, it's good to follow. As a fan, you follow your favorite fighter.
Yeah, the Kung Lee fight with the spinning back kick.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was
amazing. I can't remember who he was against.
Yeah, no, it's Frank Shamrock. Yeah, it's Frank Shamrock. Yeah, but he did a spinning back a few fights. But I remember he broke Shamrock's arm in that fight. Yeah, that was Strikeforce, and that was way back when. But unfortunately, Kung Lee does enjoy steroids. So he's tested positive for a lot of things. And
the Tito Ortiz versus Shamrock.
I was just going to talk about that
rivalry. Over the years,
huge. Yeah,
I remember watching that season where they were the coaches of the Ultimate Fighter. That was a good season.
I remember that. Frank Shamrock and Tito Ortiz, not Ken. Right? You're talking Ken, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Frank,
right?
Yeah.
Ken was he wrestled in the WWE, right?
Yeah. But Frank Shamrock and Tito Ortiz was one of the most important fights in UFC history. And so before that, and you have to give credit because there was a camp called, it was Frank Shamrock, Ken Shamrock's camp was called Lion's Den. They were a pioneer in MMA. And they were really the guys to start putting it together. Frank Shamrock left Lion's Den. It was a little bit more grappling based, but they're putting it together, in a way that wasn't unidimensional. And Frank Shamrock teamed up with Maurice Smith, who is a very famous kickboxer. He also, do you know AKA is AKA because of Frank Shamrock? So AKA, you like the Kung Lee fight. AKA was Kung Lee, because Kung Lee's academy was down the street. Javier Mendez was the owner of the academy, but Kung Lee would come down there. Frank Shamrock would come down there. Crazy Bob Cook, who left the Shamrock team, the Lion's Den with Frank, they all went to AKA. Maurice Smith would come down from Seattle, and they would train all the arts together. So AKA, the birth of AKA as an MMA team was from Frank Shamrock.
Oh.
And people don't realize that. And he was the first guy to put really technical striking, really technical wrestling at that time, and really technical grappling on the ground together, not unidimensional, and in a title fight. And Tito Ortiz too. Tito Ortiz was not a non-technical fighter. He actually had a lot of technique, but basically when he fought you, he would take you down and ground and pound you. He'd take you down and just bash your face. That was Tito Ortiz, And he would do other stuff, and he was very good at other things, but that was what he did in most of the fights. But then he and Frank Shamrock had a fight where it was a barn burner. It just wouldn't stop. You got to watch it if you It was a barn burner all over the place. Bop, 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 bop. There's jiu-jitsu, striking, grappling, shoots, wrestling, bop, bop, bop. That was the first one where you could see every element used seamlessly, intelligently, and really, really, really just. And I remember he broke Tito Ortiz's will with hammer fists from side control, spiral control, and he just hammer fisted him. And he broke Tito Ortiz's will, and that's how he won. It wasn't even technique at the end. It was the will to push and to keep. And Frank Shamrock, his cardio didn't quit, and his other weapons, he was drawing from so many weapons. Tito Ortiz is like, what the fuck? How am I gonna beat this guy? I can't. and then he just broke.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing fight.
Wow.
That's a fight that everybody should go back and watch again. Is just a turning point of modern MMA. And then since then, it wasn't the same. It was always much not always, but the top guys are more technical. They just put things together better. Frank Shamrock made the template for the modern fighter with the help of Japanese, because he didn't do it alone, because he saw what the template was in Japan, because in Japan they were doing that. They weren't as technical in the ground, but they were mixing Muay Thai and kickboxing, wrestling, and ground fighting together in a way that was not done here in America, at that level.
Big fight then.
Yeah, huge fight. Yeah. Okay.
So I got another one. Is it my turn? Or
your turn. Go ahead, please. I always talk too much. So
Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner. I think I want to take it back and change my John Jones fight to. I want this to be the big fight that brought me in the UFC with Ultimate Fighter the first season.
So important.
They just traded blows back and forth. It was an amazing bloody fucking fight.
Can I confess something?
Yeah.
I've never seen that fight.
Oh my god!
The whole thing.
I've seen the highlights.
Some clips, but I've never seen it.
Yeah,
but the most important fight in MMA history. There's no question.
It really was very, very big. Yeah.
Yeah. Before that fight, MMA was losing money.
And I loved Forrest Griffin, and I love Stephan Bonner too.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
They just went at it,
Yeah.
and they were there. They weren't there for the money. They were there for honor, and they were. I mean, obviously they want the contract, but they were there as warriors. They because there was no money. It was the UFC was the Ultimate Fighter.
I think they got a Camry.
Yeah, they did.
Maybe.
They got
a car.
They got a car. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a car.
Toyota
And a contract. But
But I remember people calling me to watch it, but I wasn't able to. But suddenly my phone is ringing. Watch this fight. Watch this fight. Watch it. And it was like 2002, 3, 2002, 3, something like that. 2003, right?
I'm trying.
Yeah, but and that actually showed in the ratings, because people just called each other like crazy. Tune into Spike TV. 2005, about 5. Yeah, tune into Spike TV and watch this. And mid-fight, the ratings just exploded.
Yeah.
And it put MMA on the map as a legitimate sport. And there was pre for Griffin Bonner and post. And that is from the financial side, from the legitimacy of the sports side, the most important fight to have ever happened. To make UFC a viable financial product. There's no question. In terms of technique,
it was just a slugfest.
Yeah, exactly. But there was also
they were new to this.
That was 13 years ago, right?
Semi-amateurs.
Yeah. But
you don't like Forrest Griffin? Or?
No. Actually, I really like Forrest Griffin, and he is an inspiring story of a guy who just walked into a gym and said, I want to train, I want to do something, and he's training out of Atlanta for a long time, and I have nothing but good things to say of him. He's an inspiration. He was just a regular Joe, and the funny thing about Forrest Griffin, he's not that athletic, but he really, really, really is a hard worker.
Yeah.
He just had a exhibition grappling match too. I forgot who fought. Frank Mir or someone else. But
his last fight was at least professional UFC fight was 2012 against Tito Ortiz. He beat him.
Yeah, he knocked him out, right?
Yeah.
Knocked him out, right? Or decision? I forgot.
Unanimous.
Decision. Yeah.
Fight of the night.
Okay, so it's my turn.
Your
now.
turn.
Okay, now. Okay, big fight. Okay, obviously the Royce Gracie reign is it, but anytime we talk about Royce Gracie, it's always a big deal. So I will put those aside, but I would say but I want to say one. Royce Gracie versus Kimo Leopoldo.
No idea who.
Okay, Kimo is the man of your nightmares.
Yeah,
he's the guy you imagine is going to kill you and rape your wife, and just the guy is taking every steroid in the book. He has his tattoos all over his body. He's one scary looking dude. Actually, in actuality, he's not a bad guy, but that is the guy of your nightmares. And
what's his Kimo
Leopoldo, right? And it was UFC 3, I believe 3. Yeah. Exactly. He just showed a picture, right? And that's actually an older picture, I think. Like that, the other picture, he had a ponytail hair, and he was on every single chemical known to man. And you look at Hoist Gracie, who's actually not small. He's tall and skinny. But because he's tall, he's not like small. But, you look at him, they look like it's, there's no reason these two people should be fighting each other. This should be illegal. That's what you see when these dudes fight. And Kimo Leopoldo walked in because he's so freaking crazy. He walked in with a crucifix, a full large crucifix on his back because at that point he had some religious revival or something. I don't know.
All right.
And he walked in with an entire crucifix on his back to the cage. And he's just nuts. And the person cornering him is a person who was killed in prison, Joe San, who is a murderer, rapist, and horrible person. That's the person cornering him. So this is the person that Frankie Hoist Gracie's fighting. And Hoist Gracie's fighting him. And this is the fight of his career where he had to dig really deep. I don't think he ever had a harder fight. And chemo is just overpowering because let me tell you, steroids, they freaking work. I mean, they're not good for you, but they work. Yeah. And he is just Hoist Gracie. Justin talks about the Gracie, myth and how they sometimes, overstate things or understate things. I won't get into that, but Hoist was getting the shit kicked out of him. And then he started just doing certain things, making his feet go in the right place. And he grabbed, his saving grace was that he grabbed Chemo's ponytail. And yanked him. I mean, hey, this was legal back then, right? And he's like, but it's adaptability. Man, he's like, hey, this guy's so freaking strong. I can't hold on to his hands. I can't hold on to his neck. I can't do anything. So you know what? I'm going to grab his ponytail. I'm going to grab that thing. And he did. And then suddenly the fight turns. He's like, hey, ponytail. You're an idiot. You should cut your hair. Right. And then he puts on a beautiful, he comes back from the brink and puts on a triangle and the triangle armbar and chemo taps. Unfortunately, the fight was so exhausting that Hoist had to step out of the tournament. And then the chemo claimed a moral victory or whatever, blah blah blah. But whatever, dude. That was, I think, a huge fight to see a person so outweighed, and like the man of your nightmares, the man who's gonna meet you in an alleyway and kill you, right in front of this guy who looks like just a regular Joe, and he beats him. And he struggled too. He struggled. Don't get it wrong. Hoist struggled in that fight. It wasn't like, I could just use jujitsu. Nothing happened. I'm fine. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu. No, that was not it. It was like, bam, I'm getting hit in the face. Bam, I'm getting hit in the face. Bam, holy shit. There's a guy, enormous guy in front of me, mashing my face to the mat and hurting me and just crushing me. Fuck.
Pull your hair.
Yeah.
Pull his hair.
And he did. But it's funny how that's so adaptable. He got his hair and then the fight turned because Keem was like, oh my God, there's a lot of leverage here. I can't move my head. And he just started kicking him and punching his head. And then with the head control, you control a person's head, you control them. And with that head control, the fight turned. And it was a huge, huge fight. The fight before that, I would say, was one that I would say everybody should watch. And this is my last one. Actually, you go. I won't say it. That's my last.
I'll go?
Yeah, you go.
I'm cheating. I'm looking stuff up.
Okay.
I have Silva versus Weidman when Anderson Silva broke his foot.
Yes.
I love that video.
Oh, my God. Tell them about the fight. Yes, for those guys who don't know.
UFC 168. And Silva, who has a history of steroids as well.
That is true.
Which may have weakened his bones.
Yeah, it's true. And I think for his case, it wasn't so much wanting to put on weight, but wanting to get in shape and weight cut. There's steroids are used for a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. Not always just gaining muscle. But anyway, yeah, he did. He was tested positive.
Yeah, and he leg kick. And then his foot wraps around Chris Weidman's leg.
Oh my God! We have to
he puts weight on his foot again.
Afterwards,
he puts it on the ground, and then
he
doesn't know it's broken. He puts his foot back on the ground and then just collapses, and it's over.
It happened in Bellator too. I was there. The guy kicked into the same thing, but that was disgusting, and it just shows, like this is real. This is no joke. You're fighting here. There's consequences to doing this stupid shit.
Yeah,
and taking steroids and kicking like that and also eating that check. I don't know. You don't have done so much kickboxing, but I know you did a little bit. But when you kick and someone checks your leg, it really, here it plays. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh yes.
And he was like yelling as they were taking him out on a gurney. Oh.
Oh yeah, that's just posted on the page.
Yeah.
That it's at a wrong angle. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, so this goes in. Okay, this goes in. That the same vein. This is my last one. We'll finish here.
Okay.
UFC 2. I want you to Google it.
UFC 2.
Patrick Smith versus Ninja. I forgot the guy's name. Just go UFC 2, Pat Smith, elbows. So, this was back in the day where still we were in the ninja craze, the crazy martial art craze. And I think this is even more than Hoist crazy. This fight is the fight that put an exclamation point on your kung fu doesn't work. Your make-believe martial arts.
Is Ray Wizard?
No, it's a white guy, like a hickey white guy. Pat Smith, UFC 2. Patrick Smith. Anyway, so let me give the background of this. There's this guy, and he's like, I represent, American Ninja Association, and he's like from Kansas. Yeah, wow, I'm gonna come here and win the UFC, show the power of ninjutsu, and it's just like the guy is just terrible, right? From perspective today. And it's one of those fake martial arts where just a really strong guy, it doesn't know how to fight. And Pat Smith, who's a world champion, he won a thing called the Sabaki Challenge, which was like kind of like a full contact competition. And but he's a kickboxer and a boxer. And actually, he fought Hoist Gracie in the UFC, and he actually was one of the guys. I believe he challenged Hoist Gracie in the Gracie challenge as well. I think he went to Torrance and challenged him. So he had some understanding of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He lost by leg lock in UFC 1. He came back in UFC 2. Then he pairs up with this ninja. The ninja guy wraps him up, tries to take him down in like the worst way, loud, kind of crappy outset trip. Pat Smith, yes,
Scott
that's
Morris.
it. Yeah, Scott Morris. Go watch it. Have you watched it? Okay, watch it. Scott Morris, Pat Smith, watch it. This is one of the most brutal finishes.
A lot of elbows.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes, oh my god is right.
How's it not over already?
Yeah, right. Well,
That's over.
Yeah, and you just see what real violence looks like. And this is the thing and people might think, oh, Rene, why do you celebrate violence? No, I don't celebrate violence. What I celebrate is understanding what reality is. When you watch this, you're like, holy shit, I don't want to get into a fight. Like when you watch like fake violence on TV, you're like, oh, there's no consequences to violence. When you watch this, you're like, oh my God, there's some freaking consequences. When I am in an altercation for my life, and this guy's mounting me and elbowing me in my face, and he just rained down elbows on Scott Smith, and actually broke his orbital bone so badly. Yeah, you just turned it off, but you missed it. When he gets up, you can see his face his face is actually not the right shape anymore. It is like a geometric shape that should not be anything associated with the human brain case. It is just sort of a geometric what are these polyhedrons?
It's a rhombus.
Yeah, it's a rhombus. His face became a rhomboid. Yes, exactly. And it is just terrible. But it's like, oh, fake martial arts don't work, and that was a huge one. Talk about just an understanding of this is what violence really looks like. This play violence from the WWF or from films or whatever, that is not it. This is what it looks like. And I think it's important to understand that, understand the power of someone to really, really hurt you. And that gives you pause when you in your daily life. And you take things seriously, and you maybe become more aware of maybe not saying something to someone that might get your face pounded.
Yeah, don't get in a fight in a laundromat.
But exactly right. I mean, that's my thing. It's why I like the UFC is because it is an unadulterated view into violence. Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
I just saw this guy's face, his hamburger meat.
And look closely at the shape of his orbital bone. It is wrong.
No, it's poking the wrong way.
Yeah, everything is the wrong way. And
did he ever fight again?
I don't think so. No.
Oh man.
Yeah. He's like, I represent, Busey's Ninja Academy, American Ninja Association, and that didn't really work out for him.
Wow.
And because of this is the wonderful thing about UFC, and we always talk about it, is the bullshit of the 80s. The knockout death touches, the ninjutsu, the crappy kung fu, the crappy, big fat belly karate guys, all that was exposed, and it changed the martial arts. The most important thing the UFC ever did was showed us this is what really works, and all this pretend stuff, that is bullshit. And I'm grateful for it, and so that is my last, great in the 25 years. We went to a little bit early years, but great fights of the past 25 years. I would also put in there for honorable mention Randy Couture, Gabriel Gonzaga, John Jones versus Cormier, Demetrius Johnson versus Horiguchi. There's some amazing ones there too. Yeah. And of course, Khabib versus who's that Irish guy again?
Yeah,
he's washed up. Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, he's some whiskey brand. He's gonna. Say.
There's I'm reading a forum talking about the fight at UFC 2. We were just talking about Morris, and they said whatever happened to him, and he said he applied the death touch to Pat Smith into UFC 2, and he's still waiting for it to work. It'll happen eventually. It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn. Look out, Pat Smith.
It's been a crazy 25 years and a great ride, and I'm very happy to be part of the MMA revolution. And again, I always tell you this, but I see MMA not just the UFC. Obviously, it's bigger. There's Bellator. There's ONE FC, which was great. ONE FC championship. I posted it on the Martial Culture page. Great ONE FC championship fight. The MMA is bigger than the UFC, but it's also bigger than any MMA organization. MMA, mixed martial arts, is a movement of evolving on unarmed fighting and seeing how we can evolve these combat techniques for self-preservation or for aggressive. If you're a military man or a policeman, you have to understand how to put people down too. So, but basically for self-preservation, in my case, like understanding the most efficient ways to apply it to human combat. And I love being a part of this revolution these last 25 years.
Beautiful. You got to be ready for the zombie apocalypse. To be able to fight them off.
Got to add more biting into my academy.
Yeah. Did you get a fake head that you can train people that also has shockers inside the teeth?
Oh. Yeah. I used to train this martial art. This is way back in the 80s. I usually don't comp to this stuff, but it was a biting martial art. So what we would do is we'd get raw pieces of meat and just look at each other and just champ and practice biting the raw pieces of meat. This was the 80s where we were doing the Filipino biting style.
Oh my gosh.
So that was those things we graduated from.
Right.
But yeah.
Have you ever been bitten?
In a fight? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think you told that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Multiple times actually, unfortunately. And eye gouge, attempted eye gouge.
Yeah.
Never been successfully bitten and successfully eye gouged because I was aware of it. But people tried all the time. One time the guy really bit me a little bit, in my thigh. Really bit me once. So I just socked him in the face.
I got bitten by a 12-year-old. I worked at
recently?
No, years ago.
Oh.
But I worked at a school and I had to discipline this child and he bit me.
Wow, yeah, but kids bite, man.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to stop people from biting. You stick your thumb right in by the molar, in between. It's a thing I learned from working with horses, but it's also a martial arts thing. You put your thumb right here, and you can't actually bite, and you just hold them around and you just fish hook them.
Yeah.
And but I think the parents would have something to say about that.
They trained us to plug their nose and then push their face into our skin as they're biting it to cut off their airflow. So they have to let go of the bite, or they'll pass out.
Oh, that's smart. Or you just stick their finger in their eye.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that was a fun trip down memory lane of the UFC.
You should not stick your finger into kids' eyes.
No, don't do it.
No, don't do it.
Do it to adults.
Yeah.
Consenting adults. Get consent first.
Krav Maga, number one. No,
yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. And what's happening this weekend? We got some UFC event this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, there's some big stuff coming up. Huge. We have Nunez Shevchenko coming up. There's so many big fights coming up.
I know obviously the John Jones fight in December. But
I can't wait for that.
There's stuff before that.
Yeah.
Who's next? Magny versus...
Nimbio versus Magny. That's an interesting fight. It's kind of like we got November 24th, Blades versus Ngannou too. And then we got the Ultimate Fighter finale on November 30th. And then we have Dos Santos versus Tuivasa. Oh, that's an interesting one. Oh boy, they're putting Tuivasa, the new Mark Hunt 2.0. That guy's funny. And then I can't wait till Shevchenko and Holloway Ortega. Oh my God, that's the one I want. December 8th. Holloway Ortega.
December's a big month.
Yeah, big. Oh my God, there's so many. Yeah, Quinta versus Elite. A lot to look forward to. But yeah, and then there's some Bellator stuff coming up, which I won't watch.
No Bellator.
No Bellator.
Boycott Bellator.
No.
Although if you're coming to New York, give me tickets. I'll go. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.